Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a different video. I want to show a bird that I've been working on. I'm not going to show anything too gross. I'm just going to show this video that I'm making. I have to catch her, is about feather cysts. And this is a very common thing that happens to birds who have very soft feathers, like this little bird. See this thing? It's actually smaller. It was 3 inches across. She had one on this side of her, on this side over here, that I did a week ago. And this one I just worked on. That's why it looks so red and it's just not very good. I just worked on that. And what it is, see it's there's my finger. You can kind of see how big it is. It's actually shrunken because I just took a whole lot of bad stuff out. But that's a feather cyst. It was about 3 inches long. It ran from her shoulder down almost to her tail. It's still not done. It's still it's about halfway done right now. But it's so frickin' big that I'm going to put her back. That I stopped halfway through, and I'm going to give her tomorrow. See, she's still flying around. She's doing better. The littler cyst on the other side that I did a week ago was actually much deeper, and I didn't even think she was going to live, but she did. I actually put a stitch in her and everything. I just used ordinary thread and needle. The reason I did that is because I have learned that you just can't realistically, when you raise little birds like this, you cannot realistically, unless you like have a whole lot of money, take them to the vet every time they need some kind of care. Since I took on raising birds, I've put 2 birds down myself. Not my favorite job, but anyway, coming over here, I want to show off my surgical tools. You can buy these on you can buy these on Amazon. Just look up surgery tools or surgical tools, and they're not even that expensive. This is just a little first aid kit that I got. The 3 tools that I used on her I don't have in here right now because I need to sterilize them, but that's what I did with her. And I'm going to describe what I did because I don't think anybody really wants to see it. But I'm going to describe what I did because feather cysts are pretty common, and you know, you can take a bird to the vet and you know, it's a surgical procedure and it will cost you a hell of a lot of money. Or, you know, in the wild, you think about it, probably a lot of birds die from these things. Although, then again, how many birds in the wild are bred to have really soft feathers? Red-mosaic, like this bird, and I have a couple over in this cage, like this guy up here. These guys, they all have really soft feathers. This guy that's on the swing, he has a problem with his wing. You can see right there that's really typical of these kind of birds. They have problems with their feathers, or they're known to have ingrown feathers, and that's what a feather cyst is. It's like an ingrown hair. It's the equivalent of an ingrown hair to a human. Except imagine think of for a minute how big a feather is. Okay, so what happens is the feather is so soft it doesn't break the skin, but it continues to grow underneath the skin, and often will fold over and fold over again, and it'll form a rock hard cyst between the muscle and the skin of the bird. Very, very painful cyst. Puts pressure on the muscle, and in really extreme cases it can compromise, it can go interfere with the organs of the bird, and then you know, you're looking at something that's not going to live probably, unless you take it to the vet in that case. But you know, something like that, you're probably not even going to know that's the situation until you're doing it yourself. And that's just it. If you have the money, I wouldn't recommend doing it yourself. I would recommend taking the little bird to the vet. But, you know, it's like, okay, when you have a lot of birds and you don't have a lot of money, you have this attitude like, well, I can do my best for the little bird, and if it lives, great. If it dies, well, then I tried. This little hen up here, same bird, last year had a feather cyst on her back. And it was about the size of a quarter, and it was and I used a tweezer, I didn't have my tools yet. And I thought she was going to die, but she actually pulled through, so I have a little more confidence now. So she gets another one. Actually, she got two on her chest. My first thought was, oh, I can do this, you know. So anyway, what do you do with a feather cyst? Well, this is what I do, and so far I've removed two from this bird, and I'm in the middle of removing the third, which is the biggest one yet. They don't bleed a lot because there's this, what it is you've got feathers inside the bird. You've got the initial one that did what I described earlier, grew inside, full-size feather usually, and it kind of gets compacted and whatever, and then you've got, because the cyst forms in the way of where other feathers are. I mean, you'll end up having more than one feather inside your bird, and it kind of makes this, it's almost like stuffing in a pillow, except it's hard. You know, it kind of looks like that. It's kind of resembles kind of a cross between sawdust and down of a feather, you know, all ground up. At least that's how hers have been the last three that I've looked at. And what I've done is I get cotton balls with warm water and saturate them. I get cotton balls with peroxide and saturate them. And I get a towel and I put the bird on the towel. And at first they do fight, but then I think you know, these things are so painful that they realize pretty quickly that you're trying to help them. This little bird, after the other two, I had her out today working on the one, and she just laid there. She just laid there. She was really, really good. It's like she knows that after this initial bad thing, she's going to feel better. There's less pressure against her side and against her organs and against her muscle and nerves and everything else, because you're taking a lot of crap out. That's a lot of crap in there. I mean, I'm not going to show how much I got out of the tumor. That's just too gross. Or the cyst. It's too gross. It's just hard though. It's not like pus. It's not like bloody, goopy, nasty stuff. It's like it is literally like you're taking the stuffing out of a pillow, except harder. And what I do is I take whatever side of the cyst that I feel confident, that I can see best usually. Like I sound like I'm talking like I do this all the time. This is only my third one, but so far I've been successful. So this is what I do. I cut all the feathers off and around the cyst. I clean the area with peroxide, or rubbing alcohol is even better if you have it. I break the skin. I have a really sharp little surgical scissors. I break the skin. It's hard as a rock under the skin, so it's really easy to break the skin, and the bird doesn't really act like it feels it. And I'm not sure if that's because, you know, this thing is so hard, and I don't know. I can't even imagine what it must feel like. And then this is gross, and this is well, you got to have the cotton balls ready in case it bleeds. Oh, and another thing you need to go to the store and you get the stuff, I can't think of what it's called, but go to the store first before you do anything else. Go to the pet store and get, it's a coagulant. You need to get a coagulant. So if the bird does bleed a lot, which this one did bleed a lot on the one that I did last week, you can put coagulant on it and it will stop the bleeding. I also would recommend that you have something just to put a stitch on the bird if in fact you end up having a really deep one like I had last week. You can maybe put a stitch. I only put one stitch and that was enough. So anyway, I open the skin about a 1/2 inch incision with the scissors. It's very shallow. It's just like, you know, like imagine if you're slitting open a blister on your skin. That's about what it's like. And there's hardly any blood at this point. And then I kind of use the forceps, or whatever you want to call it. It's like a tweezer, only it's got a really sharp nose. And I insert it, and I try to pull out whatever I can in the, just around the incision. And then I run the bird, only the incision, not the whole bird, just the surgical area. I run the bird under warm water, or slightly cool water. I think that might actually feel good for the bird. And try to, the idea is if some of that gets inside the bird, it's going to soften the stuff inside the bird, which is a good idea. Because if you can get that to be kind of soft, then you can kind of take your fingers around the boundaries of the cyst, and very gently you press toward the site of the incision. You're basically, it's kind of like popping a zit. I don't have to be gross or anything, but it's kind of like that idea. You're putting your fingers around the exterior, on the exterior of the bird, on the exterior of the cyst, and you're and you don't want to push down. You're basically trying to squeeze up, and not hard. You don't want to squeeze. That's not a good word. You're applying gradual pressure and pushing what's inside toward the incision that you just made. And then you basically it's like taking, imagine if you were to take a tweezer and reach inside a pillow and grab and pull things out of the pillow. That's exactly what you're doing. You're running the forceps, or a very, very narrow tweezer, if you don't have a forceps, if you can't get surgical tools. The narrowest tweezer you can find, you're running it under the skin, and you're keeping it as shallow as you can under the skin. You don't want to work down inside, because you're going to be, you don't know anything about what you're doing, and at least I certainly don't, and I don't want to do anything that's going to kill the bird. So I run it right under the skin and just kind of pull what I can pull from underneath, from inside out the incision. Then I run under warm water some more and squeeze a little bit more. Usually when I do that, it pushes more toward the incision than I can reach in. And I don't ever reach in more than maybe a ½ inch inside the incision to catch with the forceps or the tweezer and pull it out. And it's just, it's just this hard, it's just like stuffing. That's the best description I can make for it. It's like stuffing. And the bird will just be limp, and hopefully there won't be too much blood, but if there is, you want to keep sponging it. You want to rinse the bird. You want to keep sponging it so you can see what you're doing, and just kind of go into it like, just be very gentle, be very gradual, and then when it's all done, then you have as much out as you possibly can, or if you feel like in this case, the case of this cyst, which was 3 inches long and about 1 inch wide, I got about halfway done, and I'm like, okay, this is good for today. And I'm going to give her tomorrow off, and then Sunday I'll go back and try again to get the rest of it. And it's like, just go very slow and realize you're dealing with a very tiny little animal. And if you have the financial means to take her to the vet, don't mind paying $300, $400 for a little bird. It's probably the best bet to do if you for sure want your bird to live. This is dangerous because there's a greater risk for infection. They're not going to put the bird to sleep first, so it's probably more painful to the bird to have you doing this to it rather than having it done at a veterinarian where there's oxygen and anesthesia and all that good stuff, so they don't have to actually be awake during the procedure. So it's got to be nicer for the bird to have a professional do it. But a long time ago there wasn't veterinarians, and people on farms and stuff, they had to do a lot. They had to do a lot themselves, and they kind of had to teach themselves to do things. So that's my description, and then when it's all done, you just basically look at the wound. With the one that I did last week, you could see the muscle. That there were two sides of the incision, and they didn't close on their own, and you could see the muscle. So I took one stitch and just one little, through the very edges of each side, pull it together and tight. And that was fine. And she was jumping up and running around and flying back and forth the next morning. Oh, and I did it early in the evening because, lights out, then the bird can have the whole night to sleep and have her body recover from from the bad. So anyway, I thought I would try to describe it verbally and not actually show it, because, you know, I personally don't like those kind of videos. You know, I think that I hope my description's good enough for anybody who's dealing with this problem. It's very common in, it's more common in macaws, and it's very common in Gloucester and mosaic canaries. These are canaries that are bred to have soft feathers. So, you know, I imagine with a big macaw it would probably be even more of a nightmare because their feathers are so big. But then you're also dealing with a much bigger bird, and it might be a little bit less fragile, you know, to deal with. So anyway, this is a weird video for me to make, but you know, I just thought if somebody else is in the same situation where they have a feather cyst or two in the case of this little hen, and they don't have a lot of money at that moment to have it taken care of, then it is something you need to have taken care of right away. You can't just let the bird continue, because they hurt the bird. I mean, the fact that she went practically limp on me as soon as she figured out what I was about to do is like, oh, you know, they're not stupid animals. I think she's figured out that she feels better after it's all over. And these things hurt like hell. At least that's what I've read about them. So if you want to read about them, Google feather cysts, and you can read all about how they're formed and what, you know, you might find more things that way on what you can do. But I tried looking and I did not find anything about how to get them off myself. So I just had to go with, well, we'll see if this works. You know, it's kind of or I was thinking, okay, if it doesn't work, I'm going to put this bird down. That was kind of like the two choices. But luckily it worked for her, and and it was good. So that's all. Just thought I'd share my medical expertise. Thanks for listening. Bye.